Good afternoon, everyone. Today is the 17th of August 2016. My name is Wouter Maes, and I would like to welcome you to Milner Browne's Wednesday webinars. Today's topic is about SQL maintenance, but I would rather call it basic tips and tricks if you have a SAP Business One system which runs on SQL. First of all, I am definitely not a database administrator. This is just a short overview of a couple of tips and tricks in case you have a small IT department with very limited SQL skills. If you have any further questions after this webinar, or if there's something else you would like some help with, feel free to contact us and we will help you where possible, of course. We only have 3 small topics today. The first one is the SQL Server or database configuration settings. I will just show you a couple of quick wins which will help you avoid unnecessary performance issues and avoid unnecessary downtime. That's the word I was looking for. I will also show you how to shrink a log file, which is one of the most common SQL related issues we get asked within Milner Browne, and this often leads to downtime just because of the fact that the server is running out of disk space. And then last but not least, how to automate your backups and maintain your backups. And I think it's quite obvious why this is important. I only have a couple of slides. I will show you mainly just directly in SQL on how to perform these actions. The version of SQL I'm using is SQL Server 2014, so this could be different on your system, but if you just have a look online, there's more than enough documentation on how to perform these actions in different versions of SQL. First, I will show you some general SQL Server and database settings. For example, the memory, how to check how much memory you have available, how to limit the amount of memory SQL can use, how you can compress your backups, and where to set your data, log file, and backup locations. Maybe I should just show you straight away. So if you go to SQL, SQL Server Management Studio, so in here I have my server name and my SQL instance, so I will just connect to this one. So we right click on the SQL Server instance, we go to Properties, and over here on the General tab you can see the amount of memory which is available on your server where SQL Server has been installed. In my case you can see I almost have 8 GB of memory available. Now if you have any other applications running on your SQL Server, for example Microsoft Exchange or any other software which uses up quite some memory, it's best to limit the amount of memory SQL can use, so you definitely have enough memory available for the other applications. So in this case, let's say we can have a quick look. At the moment I've just started up my SQL instance and nobody has been connected to it, so it's not using any memory at all. As you can see here, it's only using 123 megabytes. And if we look in the performance tab, we can see that I still have about 4 GB available. So let's say I will give my SQL 3 gig of memory available, which will leave 1 gig available in case applications need more memory. So all you would have to do is go to memory here, and you normally, by default, you see a very large number in here, which means that SQL can use all the memory it has available. So in this case, we will just change it to 3000 megabyte, which is roughly 3 GB. After you've done this, you can just click on OK. I think if you decrease this amount of memory in old versions of SQL, you will have to restart your SQL servers. In the new versions, I believe it will slowly release the memory it has taken up. If not, it's best to just do either SQL Server restart here or reboot of your server altogether. Now, of course, this has to be done when people are not logged on to the system. Let's just go back to the properties here. two other very handy options I wanted to show you is, I think, in the advanced, no, it's in the database settings tab. So over here, this is just a default option, which if you don't make any changes while you set up a maintenance plan or do manual backup, then it will compress the backup by default. It's up to you whether you want to do this or not. Generally, it does take a little bit longer to perform the backup and to restore the backup, but if you really have small databases, then this is only a small win. But that's up to you whether you want to do this or not. Over here you can set your default locations for the data file, log file, and backup. Always best practice, of course, to keep those, to keep all your data log files in the same location, same for your backup locations, for your backup files, sorry. So for my backup files, I will just change this to folders I've just created before. So let's just do this to SQL backups. And then we click OK, and then this will be the default location next time I'm going to start the backup. So if we go back to our PowerPoint, the next three options are more related to your databases themselves, and I will have a quick talk about recovery model and about the two functions, two settings, auto grow and auto shrink. So we just expand the databases, and then we right click on my DemoGB database, go to properties, and when you go to options over here, you can see the recovery model. The recovery model simple means that you can only restore your system to the latest backup, full backup, or differential backup as well, I believe. If you have the compatibility level set to full, it means that you can also restore to the latest log transaction backups. Now, the most common mistake, and that's why I also included how to shrink a log file in this webinar, the most common mistake is that people leave this to full, which is the default setting after you created a new database. And when you leave this to full and you never do a backup of your log files, the log files will never get emptied and they will keep on growing until eventually your server runs out of space. So unless you have an IT department who can set up these backups for you and you want to have point-in-time recovery, then I would advise you, like most customers do, is just to have it set to simple, which only allows you to restore to the latest backup. Now, feel free to use the full recovery model, but please do keep in mind to back up your transaction logs as well. But what else did we have here? So the auto grow and auto shrink option. Auto shrink, always for your company database, leave this to false. If you set this to yes, it will fragment the data in your database, which will, after a while, reduce the performance of your system. And auto grow, this is another very important option here. This is a setting which defines what the data file has to do when it's reached its full capacity. So the options you have here is you can do the file growth in percentage or in megabytes, and I believe the default one is to increment by 1 megabyte, which means that whenever you add 1 megabyte of data to your system, that it actually has to grow the file by 1 megabyte. As you can understand, 1 megabyte is not that much, so it will be constantly have to grow the file. Therefore, SAP's recommendation is to set this to percentage and set it to 10%. Now, if your database is incredibly big, you can always, for example, set this to megabytes and then change it to 1 gigabyte at a time, for example. This is up to you. If you need any advice on this, feel free to let us know. And also over here you can set the maximum file size. Best to keep it on unlimited and just check your size of your data files and log files regularly in order to avoid unnecessary downtime. So we leave this to 10% and to 10%. And this is the location of your data file and your log file, and this is the name of the data file and this of the log file. Now, if we go back to our presentation, so I've done the recovery model, full or simple, auto grow, auto shrink, and the next one is to shrink a log file. So if we go back to SQL Server Management Studio, just to continue on what I was saying before, if we have a look here at the database properties of the SBO Common Database, you can see that the size of both my data and log file together is about 15 gigabyte, but yeah, 15, 16 gigabyte. Now, the reason for this, I will show you, is let's first of all open up the location. You can see here that it's set to auto-grow by 1 megabyte and by 1 megabyte, and also that the recovery model is set to full. Recovery model is set to full, and my logs have never been backed up. So if we just go to this location, you can see here that the database itself is about 3.2 gigabyte and the log file is about 12.2 gigabyte. Now, in order to shrink this log file, first of all, we will have to empty the data which is in it, and we can just do that by simply backing up, doing a full, either backing up the transaction log, either backing up the transaction log or setting the recovery model to simple and then do a full backup. So I will go for the second option, as the simple recovery model is sufficient for my own system. So if we go to options and we set this to simple, okay, and then we go back to SQL and we just do a normal manual backup, which is very easy. If you right click on the database, go to tasks, backup, and then you can see here that it's taken the default location we've defined earlier, and we just say database SBO common, and we want to do a full backup, and we can leave all the other defaults. One thing, what was it? Yes, and here you can set the backup compression, but we'll leave it as the default service setting. We click on OK. And we just wait a couple of minutes. Okay, this has now been backed up. So if we have another look, I think I forgot to show you, but basically the way you can check it is if we go to task and then we do shrink, we're going to shrink the log file. So we go to files, and now, so the file type is just the log file. And you can see here, I should have shown you this before this would have shown that there was almost no available free space. Since we've set it to simple and we've done a full backup, it just emptied the log file completely, well, almost completely. And it only has a small little bit of data in it. Now, this does, however, not reduce the size of this file. So even though there is no more data in it, we just have to tell SQL Server to release the amount of space back to Windows. And the way to do that is just in here by saying shrink action, release unused space, and we click on OK. We give it a couple of minutes. Now, depending on the size of your log file, this could take a while. But if we go back into data now, into the check the size of the log file, instead of 13 gigabyte, we now have half a megabyte. This was all what you need to know about shrinking the log file. And if we just have a quick look at the slides. The next thing I want to show you, so the manual backup I've just shown you by backing up the SBO common. I will show you in a bit. And how to automate your backups, quite an important topic as well and very easy to set up. Now, one thing I do want to point out to you is that it is your responsibility as a customer or as a IT department of one of our customers to make sure the backups are running on a regular basis, and that every now and then you do test the validity of your backups to make sure that if you want to restore them, you can actually restore them okay. So to automate your backups, if we go into SQL Server Management Studio, go to Management, we go to Maintenance Plans, right-click on Maintenance Plans, and do Maintenance Plan Wizard to make it easy for ourselves. We click on Next. So first of all, it asks to fill in a name. So we say Daily Backups. You can put in a description if you want. If your IT department has created a separate service account to do your backups, you can define this here. And we'll just leave the defaults for now to make it as easy as possible. And the single schedule for the entire plan or no schedule, we're gonna change this and we're gonna say it has to run every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 11 o'clock at night. And no end date. We say next, and then we're gonna do a full database backup and maybe also cleanup of the history and the maintenance cleanup task, just so we can say that, for example, any backups older than 7 days can be removed from the system, as you probably do offsite backups anyway. Now, there is a difference here you can do. So if your recovery model is set to simple, these are the two options, full and differential. So in order to use differential backups, then you will have to schedule your full backups as well. And then the way you have to restore them is restore the full backup first, and then restore the sequential differential backups, followed by any log backups if you want point-in-time recovery for the full recovery model. So we will just focus on the full database backup. First clean up the history, then we're going to back up database, and then we're going to do the maintenance cleanup task. As you can see, this is really easy to do. This is the historical data in the log files, so we're going to remove everything older than 4 weeks. This is fine. And then we're going to say in here, in the General tab, we can select which databases we want to back up. In our system, we're just going to use SBO Common, SBO Demo GB, and ignore databases where the state is not online. That's fine. Then destination, we will leave it to the default location, but we are going to create a subdirectory for each database, just to make it easy for ourselves. And the backup file extension, we'll leave to the default BAK. And the options, you can do verify backup integrity, but as I said, I think it's a safer option to just try restore every now and then to make sure your backups are going okay. Then this is the maintenance cleanup task, so we're going to delete the backup files from this folder, from SQL backups, and we're going to include first level subfolders, because we've told SQL to create a subfolder for every different database, and we're going to look at the file extensions BAK and delete all backups older than 1 week. We click on next. You can have a report written to a text file, or if you set up emailing from SQL Server, you can have an email report, a report email to yourself. I'll just untick this now for this demonstration. We click on next and finish. And now it's just creating our maintenance plan. We click on close. Now, this is the last bit I want to show you. In order to automate, because you will see here that you will have your daily backup maintenance plan. In order to automate this, you will have to make sure SQL Server agent is enabled. So we're just going to start this. Are you sure you want to start SQL agent service on this computer? We click on yes. If you want to double check whether SQL Server agent is running, you can just right click on Start, go Run, go into your services in the normal Windows services, and make sure this, instead of set to manual, is actually set to automatic. Now you will see here in the jobs that we have this daily backup job, and this would run at 11 o'clock at night, but if we just want to see if it's working fine, we can say start the job, and we give it a couple of minutes. So as you can see, both this job executed successfully. So if we will have a look now in SQL backups, you can see I created a folder for all the different companies. It also includes the date. Same for the demo GB, and this is my manual backup from before. Now the very last thing I wanted to show you quickly before I end this webinar is how to restore this database. So if you want to do a manual restore, for example, test company based on your live data, you can just very easily right click on databases, click on restore database. We're going to restore from a device. Just browse to our location. Select the backup. Click on OK. So we're going to restore it to test SBO demo GB. Always handy to put in the data in here as well, so it's easier for maintenance afterwards. And then the only thing we want to do, I'll just copy this, is go to files. Now this here is the important bit where it says restore as. In some versions of SQL, or this might be a setting I would have to look it up, you will see that sometimes it keeps the original file name in here. So this is the very important bit, that if you go to files, that you check where it says restore as, that it actually has the name of your test company and not the name of the live data or log files. So in this case this is fine, so all we would have to do is click on OK, and then you will see very quickly it created our new company. So if we would go into SAP Business One, we click on refresh, you see we now have our test demo database. Then all which you would have to do is just log on to your new company, and make sure you change the name just in order to avoid any confusion. So if you go to administration, system initialization, company details, and we can call this test of test system, as Matterman is a test system as well. That's it. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know. And even if it's something which is out of the scope of ERP SAP Business One support, just feel free to let us know and we will help you out wherever we can. Thanks for your attention and see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.